Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 943. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today's December 2nd, 2025.
All right, welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. We are so glad you could be here. For our American viewers, we hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Right now, I'm finally back down to my same pant size I was before Thanksgiving. I had to wear my sweatpants the 2 days after. I don't know about, my body loves to feast. I'm not really good at the famine. I'm not really good at fasting, but boy, you give me a turkey and taters and stuffing and all the fixings, and I'm good. How was your Thanksgiving, George?
Just fine. Family got together Thanksgiving Day, dinner at home. Lovely time.
That's great. Yeah, we went to a nice gourmet restaurant they have here in D.C. called Seasons 52. Our family's way up in Pittsburgh, and just too much drama to get everybody together twice a year. But maybe we're doing some Christmas stuff with them up in Pittsburgh. We'll see how that all works. Quick health update. I asked you guys to pray about my cardiac test results that were coming through. And here's the situation if you don't know. On August 31st, I was on my bike ride and my heart went into a rhythm called SVT, supraventricular tachycardia, which it's not ultimately dangerous, but boy, it's scary. I got an ambulance. I went to the hospital. Hospital referred me to a cardiologist. Cardiologist gave me 4 tests. It sounds like something right out of a Lord of the Rings thing. And so, first test was the echocardiogram. They take a big test of your heart, and your heart's fine, valves are good. Second test was the Holter monitor, where they monitor for a whole week how many beats you have and making sure they're in rhythm and just nothing's dancing out of sync. And then they give you the nuclear stress test. And I failed that, George. And my doctors gave me 2 choices. We can send you to the cath lab, which they did for George, or we can take a CAT scan of your heart and do a calcium score. I said, I don't want to sound like a wimp, but I'd rather do that one first, because I am a wimp. So I got my results yesterday, and apparently I am one of the people who has low calcium in my cardiac region. I came back at 5%. And I have no blockages. I have no anything down there. It's every artery is clean. I have no widowmaker. I have no nothing. Kevin, that 12 weeks of stress you felt because maybe we kind of screwed up on the nuclear stress test, that's on us. Okay, sorry. But you're good to go. You can get back on your bike. So thank you for your prayers. You're going to see this episode, just that stress wiping off my face, because I'm a hypochondriac. George isn't. Yeah, George, he can sit here with a neck brace after a failed surgery, no big deal. He can go get his cardiac catheterization and show up the next day typing for Anglican, no big deal. I'm fine. Kevin, I add stress to my life that shouldn't be there. So thank you all for your prayers. We do appreciate that. Other things to be praying about, the ACNA. Let's move on to our first story, George. There's a lot going on. We got a letter the day before Thanksgiving from Julian Dobbs, the acting primate and dean of the province of the American of the ACNA. And I thought we'd go through what he said, and hopefully I can have him on Anglican Unscripted in a week or 2 for a follow-up interview and see how things are going. First of all, he mentions a couple things we should talk about. First, bishops to hold an in-person meeting soon.
Yeah, this is what I would call a "we hear you" letter. A letter to the troops saying we hear your concerns and we're going to act upon them. We're not going to push to one side, which is very good. It says that we hear you, because there's plenty of shouting going on. Mm-hmm. The bishops are going to gather an in-person meeting to discuss both the immediate issues, Steve Woods, Stuart Rook, Derek Jones, so
Title
forth.
IV.
As well as the more structural ones, Title IV, the disciplinary process. And maybe opening up, Phil Ashey has a very thoughtful letter. Phil Ashey, Bishop of Western Anglicans, had a very thoughtful letter we've reprinted on Anglican Ink, asking, what is a bishop for? I mean, what should the bishop be doing? Should he be an administrator? Should he be a king? Should he be a father in God? And the ACNA has tacitly admitted they don't know how to do it right. Now, that's no shame in that. At Vatican II was a great deal of talk about what is the bishop for.
Yeah, same discussion.
Lambeth conferences have asked these questions, and the Anglican Communion does not know what a bishop is for.
The Episcopal Church doesn't know. This is not a new question.
My, in my personal case, my bishop, some people think, most lay people think a bishop has a relationship with his clergy the way a priest has with his lay people. That's not true. Bishops have no interest or knowledge of anything in your life. They're not there for you when you have crises. They're not there for you when you have joys and happiness. They are basically people in distant places who take your money and visit every 3 years, and issue things that are of importance to them. Well, that's just the Episcopal way. We're basically we're pseudo-Presbyterians with the guy who we pay off. And the ACNA is like that, but it differs from diocese to diocese. One of the controversies about the jurisdiction of the armed forces was that Derek Jones allegedly was a tyrant and a king. He micromanaged everything. Mm-hmm. Other ACNA dioceses are the exact opposite. They're very relaxed.
Hands off. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do have a suggestion. When you get together, College of Bishops, I would start with a prayer, and we call this prayer the Great Litany. It's time just to start over, to sit back and preach and pray the Great Litany. To cover yourself from the heresy, the wickedness of the world, and just do some real soul searching for not only what the role of the bishops and the priests are, but what the role of your church is. Yeah, right now the role of your church should not be to make front cover Washington Post. That should not be the role of your church.
Nor should it be the role that Christ Our Advocate Church, C4SO Parish in the Chicago area has.
You have to say no more. C4SO. You could stop right there. Everybody in the audience is like, no, what? No.
This church is run by a clergy couple, the McGowans, who were profiled in a RNS Religion News Service, and that's a left of center religious media organization that profiled the churches and some of its leaders' views, support for efforts to thwart the immigration and ICE, the Border Patrol, in immigration enforcement, tracking ICE agents. Then if some people did a little deep dive, saying, well, whoa, what they're saying here basically is that we're helping people violate immigration law, not just helping immigrants, but we're actively trying to thwart the enforcement of immigration. And then we had a few people, Mark Marshall, who did an investigation into the congregation. He looked at some of the services where the people from the pulpit, the McGowans from the pulpit, are calling ICE agents Gestapo. I mean, this is an ACNA parish, folks. Even an Episcopal church would blush at going that far.
Well, there's Presbyterian churches in Atlanta doing that. I mean, that's troublesome because the previous administration did not enforce border law in any way, shape, or form. And this administration is trying to return us to some set of normalcy, and that can be messy. I've been following pretty closely. I'm surprised it's not more messy, trying to enforce what the previous administration didn't do. regardless of Kevin, we're supposed to be good Samaritans. I'm just talking about the rule of law, and what the president has set out here is let's return to a country that does have borders. Is that wrong?
Well, from that's a political issue that you and I are not going to solve.
Nope.
But from a church perspective, these two people shouldn't be clergy. They should not be granted the authority to mount a pulpit and preach the word of God if all they're going to do is mouth platitudes from MSNBC. The ACNA really has to get its act together. It's great fun. I'm an Episcopalian, so I enjoy dumping refuse on the Episcopal Church's craziness. But the ACNA needs to get its act together too. Mm-hmm. And it needs to basically, why are you tolerating people who deny Jesus Christ in their very words from the pulpit, in their attitudes, their actions, and certainly are not a reflection of what the church should be or what a priest should be? But that's me. And I'm not a bishop, and what does it matter what I care? It doesn't. But but here's the sort of thing: if people, the Episcopal Church has lost 2/3 of its membership over the years for exactly this sort of stupidity. Yeah. Chasing the culture, being woker than thou, and if that's where the ACNA wants to go, so here's the conundrum the bishops are facing. We've got the accusations of the worst of cover-up culture. The worst of cover-up culture, where bishops can do no wrong and bishops are judged at a different standard than other clergy, coupled with out-of-control clergy doing political things with no supervision from the adults. That's the perfect recipe for institutional implosion, unless somebody steps up and does something.
Well, I hope they can take it. Do they give a date for their meeting they'll get together for the College of Bishops?
I think it's in the coming week. Okay,
because we have here, they said that Archbishop Wood is going to be inhibited for 60 days. They said in this letter, Julian wrote in the letter that he'll be the acting primate and dean of the province. He says the bishops to hold a meeting in person, and I think that's coming up in a couple of days here in December. He said December 16th, the Ruck decision would be expected. And he talked a little bit about Derek Jones.
Remember the ACNA office would neither confirm nor deny.
Here it is.
If there was investigation in Jones, Dobbs sort of stepped on that and said, we're well underway in doing all this.
Okay. So I think all in all, it's an encouraging note from the head office, and you need to keep the ACNA in your prayers. They got caught with their pants down, not knowing what to do in some certain difficult situations. Is this redeemable? Absolutely. Can they learn from this? Yes. Are people outside the ACNA giddy that this is it? This is the end of the ACNA? Some are, but I think most of the people realize no, they'll get by with this without too much trouble. Because indeed, you have to be humbled when you find yourself in this situation, and we pray that our bishops find themselves humbled and in a sense of not panic, but in a sense of searching out the Holy Spirit. On to our next story, George. Sarah Mullally, future Archbishop of Canterbury. She hasn't been enthroned yet, has she? I wasn't paying attention.
Last week, the king formally approved or commanded or whatever.
Okay.
The steps are unfolding.
Okay,
it's
good.
going to happen soon.
Well, when you have a female Archbishop of Canterbury in a province that allows for flying bishops, the flying bishop's going to have a conundrum. Because the flying bishop is there to fly because there's a certain segment in the clergy that do not honor women's orders. They got him escapism. Hey. And that worked up until the point, now he has a women's orders bishop who's a woman. There's trouble there.
Yeah. The complementarian evangelical flying bishop, Rob Monroe, Bishop of Ebbsfleet, wrote a letter to his clergy about the Mullally conundrum. And he said, and he quote, "There is a distinction in Canon and Scripture between the spiritual and legal authority of a bishop and archbishop So you are not necessarily under Sarah's spiritual headship. So he's saying that though we legally are under her legal canonical authority, we're not under her spiritual authority. That's a good talking point if you want to calm the troops. But he'll have to make a choice. Is he under Mullally's headship or not? Because he's being a little legalistic here. He's twisting the distinction between what the canons state. He's not well. Now, what are his options? He could move to Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell. He's a man, but hey, what if they replace Cottrell with a woman? How is this going to end? So, how do complementarians, those of evangelical, the Anglo-Catholics have made their peace. They have found the way to survive with a little get-out. The evangelicals have tried to emulate the Anglo-Catholics in forming their own ghettos, but they can't get over the headship issue.
Right.
And I'm not being dismissive when I put it in that way, but that is a stumbling block for them. And Monroe's distinction between spiritual and canonical headship, I just don't buy it myself.
Yeah, when she gets installed and she holds her first Eucharist at the big table, will this bishop take communion with her, from her? And then you'll know.
Well, he probably would say, well, because there are other men at the, you can always find an excuse to do something.
I can't, but some people can.
But at a certain point, you're going to have to say, okay, where do you come down on this? And I really feel badly for Monroe because he's almost in an impossible situation.
Indeed. All right, let's move over to Africa. And then some news. We got news from Ghana and Nigeria. The Afghan Church in Ghana backs the Methodists over Muslim aggression over clothing. Let's talk a little bit about this.
Well, Anglican Church, not Afghan Church.
What did I say?
You said Afghan.
See, this is just my whole brain coming down from my anxiety for 12 weeks over my little heart issue. It's just Anglican. Yes, there you go.
There's a worldwide phenomena right now of Muslim aggression, of Muslims pushing themselves into public places and sort of colonizing or claiming them. Everything from turning a multi-faith prayer room in an airport into a place where women are not allowed to go because it's a Muslim prayer room now, to not being able to sell bacon or halal meat has to be served, butchered according to Muslim practices, not regular practices, all throughout the West. Well, some people are taking stands, and part of that stand is beginning in Africa. One of the major schools in the systems in Ghana are run by the Methodists. They have a girls' high school in the capital. And some Muslim students have started wearing the hijab, the full face body covering. And the school said, no, sorry, you can't do that. No hijab in school. Well, Muslim groups have made a stink about this. Not just the parents, but, Muslim religious organizations protesting the newspapers, going to the government. And the Methodist Church school is held firm. And the Anglican Church, which also has a major school system, gone and says, yeah, we're with the Methodists on this. We teach our people tolerance and respect for people of other religions. But that's different from coming into a church school and demanding that we create a church school within a school, a parallel system for Muslims. We see this in England, where you have the establishment of Sharia law courts. You remember Rowan Williams saying, "Oh, that's fine. Let Muslims have their own legal system."
What could go?
What could go wrong? Well, we see what's going wrong. In Ghana, the Methodists and the Anglicans are saying, "Look, enough is enough. We just are sick and tired of Muslim aggressiveness, and it's stopping right here with us." And I think that's a phenomenon we're going to see more and more of in the West, in Australia, and places where a militant Muslim minority, not all Muslims, but a group within Muslim society is making it unpalatable for the rest of civilization to coexist with Muslims.
It is
harder and harder to get along.
We have cities here, Dearborn, Austin, Houston, where there are speakers playing the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's not really something we in the West want to encounter in our culture. They're doing it more and more in our airports and places in our schools. And we are very tolerant as a West society, but there are factions within Sunni and Shia Islam that have no tolerance whatsoever. And
one of the jokes...
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the jokes about this, like there was a case a few years ago where in Florida where a Muslim woman wanted to have her driver's license taken with her veil.
Yeah.
And the state of Florida said, nope, sorry, you can't do that. And the big stink went all the way up the courts and finally said, well, this is identification and she doesn't have to have a driver's license or whatever.
Right.
So she lost. Tried doing this in some Muslim countries, refusing to cooperate, the Saudis, the Jordanians, and the Moroccans, and the Egyptians. If you tried this crap with them, you'll find out your religious freedom. Yeah. In other words, Islamism is more of a problem in the West than it is in many Islamic majority nations, and we just have allowed ourselves to be taken advantage of by an aggressive minority.
Yeah. Update here: Church of Nigeria priest kidnapped in Kaduna dies. Over in Nigeria, right before Thanksgiving, there was a school that was raided, and I think 250 of the students were kidnapped. In that, a Roman Catholic priest was murdered in a raid on a church in Kaduna. There's been a lot of violence happening over in Nigeria, but I don't know if it's getting the press or if the stories are half-truths. I'm not sure what's going on, George.
Well, President Trump, most famously for American viewers, told the Nigerian government to get its act together and stop Christian genocide, or he'd have to do something about it. Now, nobody in the United States expects Donald Trump to put troops on the ground in Nigeria, but the threat is enough to get them to start taking this seriously. The Nigerian government pushed back, and some Nigerian religious leaders pushed back, saying, oh, there is no genocide. And then we have people like Archbishop Ben Kwashi, the Kaduna, who has been himself the victim of this violence from Fulani Muslim tribesmen. We have, just as they're saying, oh, there is no violence, we have 250 children kidnapped from a school. And an Anglican priest murdered, and a Roman Catholic priest murdered in 1 week. Who are you going to believe?
The mass graves,
lions thinking eyes, or the official government denials. The murder of Nigerian Christians is real. It's ongoing. How many? I don't know.
Yeah,
don't know. But to deny that it's even a problem, or to play it off, oh, it's just a problem of climate change. I'm sorry.
Well, one of the problems is last year, or I guess in the spring, we had that Congo massacre that turned out to be a non-massacre. We could never have any verification happen. Here we're having verification. We have the pictures and some of the video with the mass graves. We have the eyewitnesses and testimonies, something we never got out of Congo in the spring. And I want to believe the testimonies, and I would like very much for the Nigerian government to get their act together and acknowledge this is happening. When you deny it, it's going to last a lot longer. Let's move on to our next. I don't know now how a Hong Kong story makes it to the pages of Anglican Unscripted, but here we go. Hong Kong high-rise fire. Fire has killed at least 125 people, and it ripped through a government housing project in Hong Kong. 7 30-story towers. I saw a lot of the video. It was horrific. And it may be the tipping point to unrest, you say?
Yeah, this is a regular news story of a terrible fire, worst in Hong Kong history. But what's coming is, I think this may be a tipping point of some sort, because the people of Hong Kong who have been absorbed into China, mainland China, have not liked it. They've lost their democracy. They've lost a great many of their rights. And in its place, they would be said, we would have patriotic mainland Chinese rules and governments, and you would not be exploited anymore.
Right.
Well, that's not happened. And what instead has happened is that Hong Kong mainland standards are being imported into Hong Kong. And so you had this terrible fire, and it looks like substandard materials that did not meet Hong Kong safety standards, but met mainland Chinese safety standards, were used and contributed to this terrific fire. And why there's the spark and the controversy is that the Hong Kong government, controlled by Peking, is essentially blaming Hong Kong practices, saying, and while the people of Hong Kong say, that's nonsense. So why do I say this might be the tipping point? Well, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, has been placed on high alert to respond to potential violence. And why is this an Anglican Ink story? Well, the Archbishop of Hong Kong, the Anglican Archbishop of Hong Kong, Archbishop Chan, released a statement of prayer, which says all the sort of things you would expect, and then it has a little thing at the end about let us be nice to one another and not turn neighbor against neighbor, or words to that effect. I don't have a statement in front of me. Why would you, if it's just in the aftermath of a residential fire that is due to shoddy construction practices, would you put out a word against political animosities and divisions? Because I think just below the surface, things are brewing and boiling, and the Archbishop wants to prevent things from getting out of hand.
The tension has been rising ever since Britain turned it back over to the Chinese government. Even though promises were made, and promises are always made, it didn't take too long for China to get their people elected into office and to start changing laws and start making it so that if somebody does something bad over there, we can bring them to China for persecution. I'm sorry, I meant prosecution. Did I mean persecution? I bet I meant persecution. And there are people who 2, 3, 4 decades ago lived in absolute capitalism and freedom. That's something that's very hard to give up, and especially when somebody brings over their bamboo sticks and non-fireproof sheathing, and they burn down 30-story buildings. It's crazy.
Well, the bamboo is one of the funny little things. The communist commentators and news sources saying the problem is the bamboo, using as scaffolding instead of the steel scaffolding they used in mainland China. Well, they've been using bamboo scaffolding for 100+ years in Hong Kong, and because the streets are narrow, they're flexible, and they don't burn. Hong Kong bamboo
smoke.
chars, it doesn't burn. The problem with steel scaffolding is that it melts and it all comes down. So it's not so much the scaffolding material, but it's the lie that the people of Hong Kong can basically pick apart just from their own experience, that it was bamboo's fault when it was the netting that was supposed to be flame retarding that caught fire. And the company is owned allegedly by one of the in-laws of Xi Jinping, the chairman of the Communist Party. I don't know if that's true or not. People are saying that. There really is a tipping point being reached in China. And these sorts of things are what may set things on fire.
All right. One day before Thanksgiving, 2 National Guard troops were shot in the head in Washington, D.C., like 2 or 3 blocks from IRD's office where Jeff Walton hangs out. And sadly, the female troop succumbed to her injuries. The other guy just came out of his coma this morning. And this is a Anglican Unscripted story because Bishop Buddy has added her voice to this, George.
Bishop Buddy issued a joint statement with the Dean of the Washington National Cathedral about the shooting of the National Guardsmen. And I will give her credit, she did not blame Donald Trump, which some Democratic politicians were doing and media personalities. But she did do something that when I read it, I rolled my eyes. It could have been worse, but her response to the shooting was, let's not be mean to Muslims and blame Afghans in general. It's, the same sort of thing after the 9/11. Oh, we have to worry about our response and being unkind to Muslims after the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. Bishop Buddy, we have to worry about our knee-jerk response to blame Afghans for this issue. Some things are just, I don't even know what to say. Some things are just so predictable.
Yeah.
In their inanity. I mean, and you wonder why why people think the leadership is in the tank of the Episcopal Church.
Yeah, well, right now they think it for all churches and provinces. It's interesting. It's very sad that we've come to the point now where we made the National Guard our enemy. Our politicians have continued to just bring complete disrespect to an honored tradition of serving in armed forces, and it's very disappointing to watch and very disappointing to talk about. Let's hope and pray for the safety of all our troops in each branch of the military. George, kind of a final story come up here. I got 2 left here. Oak Hill College, that's London, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And London Evangelical Seminary under fire for response to bullying controversy. A female Old Testament professor, Sydney Tooth, bullied by male vice principal. The college is accused of covering it up. That never happens.
The story here, on one level, is a breakdown of staffing roles and responsibilities and having a bad person in a position of responsibility. Happens everywhere. The bigger issue is the alleged cover-up, trying to silence the victim, trying to make it go away, saying all is well, don't worry. This may just be a one-off, but Nick Howard, in an essay published in Anglican Ink and on his website, noted that this is just the English evangelical way of dealing with things. Jonathan Fletcher, John Smythe,
Yeah.
All these first deny, delay, cover up, don't let it go public, protect the reputation of the team and us above justice for the victims. This is the problem that the College of Bishops of the ACNA is going to have to address. Are we going to engage in this evangelical cover-up culture of, protecting the institution over the victims? So it's not ACNA is not an American problem, their issue, nor is it an English issue at Oak Hill. But what is there within the Christian subculture in which you and I swim, Kevin, where cover-up seems almost to be the natural response to some issues? Why are we so afraid of the truth? Are we so fragile that we cannot speak the truth about bad things that have happened done by our own people? Are we if we admit that we had a bad apple in the bunch, that means our whole way of life is wrong? Of course not.
One of the things we always have trouble dealing with our wounds. Okay, dealing with our scars. And if we don't deal with the wounds and our scars, we're going to be dealing with our own autopsy. At some point the body's just going to die. you have to look yourself in the face and, why am I bleeding? What caused this? What can I do to stop it from continuing to bleed? And how can I stop myself from being wounded again? The ACNA has not reached the point where they know why they're bleeding. They don't know what the problem is yet. They don't know how did this happen. And you're going to bleed to death before you realize that. And this is your opportunity with the College of Bishops. This is the opportunity with those who write the bylaws and constitution to sit down and get on your knees, say the great litany, and discover who you really are as a church. You're not just words on paper. You are a movement of the Holy Spirit here to seek God's favor amongst the earth and bring his people to him. Or you can just bleed to death. It's your choice. What's the next story, George? Is that it? No, we got a fun story. Oh no! Don't have too much fun with the next story. But let's talk about our Roman Catholic friends.
A recent document called Una Caro, One Flesh, was put out by the Dicastery of the Doctrine of the Faith. This is a theological note on marriage. Mm-hmm. And Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, the prefect of this dicastery, has told the world that the biggest problem facing Christians in the marriage world today is polygamy.
What?
Not divorce, not homosexuality.
That's not a problem we have here in the Kallsen house.
Okay. And now the document starts out right. It says marriage is, quote, a unique and exclusive union between one man and one woman, unquote. But as you read further and further into the document, you see some changes. So that when you get to the conclusion, instead of saying the marriage is a unity composed of a husband and a wife, the document now reads, marriage is a unity composed of two individuals.
Okay.
Do you see the sleight of hand here?
Yeah.
The first paragraph where the lay people will stop, after that they'll stop reading, says man and woman, husband and wife. The last paragraph where the activists will read will say two individuals. So where does this mean? If you take this with Fiducia Supplicans, which was co-authored by Francis and Fernandez, are we seeing another step in getting people to accept monogamous gay relationships?
Yeah. Is this a slippery slope?
Church?
This is a slippery slope. You know.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a suspicious, nasty old man. But I just, when you see little tricks like that, you have to ask yourself: is this just sloppy editing, or is there a deliberate bait and then switch?
I don't know. Sometimes we're the old curmudgeons on the old Muppet Show. Remember the two old guys they had in the theater sitting down, making fun of everything and complaining? That's our role sometimes. Sometimes we're there to point out the obvious, and sometimes we're there to say, I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 943 of Anglican Unscripted.